Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing has just been released in theatres, and it's quite the wild film from start to finish. Starring Austin Butler, the film is a delightfully deranged crime carnival, equal parts chaotic, comic, and caper. It's a lean, stylised thrill ride, not aiming for gut-punching emotional depth, but rather an absurdist, adrenaline-fueled tribute to 90s New York mayhem. It may not be Aronofsky's most profound piece of work, but it's definitely one of his most mischievous and fun. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of Caught Stealing, discussing full plot details, the ending, and much more. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more on upcoming releases like Caught Stealing, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing. So Caught Stealing is the dark comedy crime thriller directed by Darren Aronofsky with a screenplay by Charlie Huston based on his own novel. The film stars Austin Butler as Hank Thompson, a washed-up former baseball prospect turned bartender in 1998 Lower East Side Manhattan. The film opens by introducing Hank, a high school star destined for the major leagues, but his life was permanently altered by a tragic car accident. Not only did the crash destroy his knee, ending any hope of playing professional ball, but it also killed his best friend Dale, a wound that Hank still carries in both his body and soul. By the late 90s, Hank is a shadow of that young athlete he was before. He tends bar in the grungy Lower East Side of Manhattan, drinks too much, and lives a quiet, somewhat aimless existence. His one tether to something pure is the love he still has for the San Francisco Giants and his regular phone calls to his mother back in California, who worries about him but can't rescue him from the spiral of his own self-pity. Hank's life eventually takes an unexpected turn when his eccentric upstairs neighbour in Matt Smith's Russ prepares to leave town. Russ, a wiry punk with ties to London's underground scene, asks Hank to do him a small favour, and that is to watch over his pet cat Bud. To Hank, who is lonely and drifting, this feels like a harmless, even comforting responsibility and something simple to hold on to. But what Hank doesn't know is that Russ is not just a quirky neighbour, but a low-level drug dealer tangled in dangerous business. By agreeing to babysit Bud, Hank unknowingly steps into the crosshairs of criminals who are after much more than just a cat. The illusion of safety shatters when two Russian mobsters, Alexei and Pavel, storm into Hank's apartment looking for Russ. They beat him savagely, tearing into his body with brutal precision until he loses a kidney. So Hank's already fragile life starts to turn into a nightmare. The Russians think he knows where Russ is hiding, and more importantly, where a valuable key has gone. Hank has no answers about this key, but his silence only earns him more pain. Shaken and now stitched together, Hank soon finds himself under the scrutiny of Detective Roman, an apparently sharp NYPD officer. Regina King's Roman makes it clear that she's been watching Russ, and now Hank is caught in the dragnet. It's here that Hank first hears of the Drucker brothers, two orthodox Jewish enforcers who balance their religious devotion with a chilling ruthlessness. They too are after whatever Russ left behind. Eventually, Hank is caught off guard by Bud's litter box, where he finds the mysterious key the mobsters wanted, hidden in a toy that looks like cat poo. In that moment, he realises that Bud is the unintentional guardian of a prize that could get him killed. And from here, we see that Hank stumbles deeper into chaos. Still drinking heavily and dazed from the beating, he becomes a target for even more predators. He's confronted by Colorado, a gangster with ties to the Russians, who demands answers Hank doesn't give him. We learn that Hank's only solace is in Zoë Kravitz, Yvonne, a paramedic who has been quietly falling in love with him. She recognises the fragility beneath his bruises and gives Hank a flicker of warmth in his life. But that flicker dies quite fast. When Hank races back to Yvonne, he finds her murdered by a gunshot. At the time, the loss is crushing for him, yanking away his one shot of redemption and leaving him fully alone. With all the grief, he turns back to Roman for help, but her presence only thickens the fog of betrayal. Soon, every faction, the Russians, Colorado, and Roman, descend on the bar where Hank works. It turns out that Roman is working with Colorado and the Russians, and a bloodbath erupts in the bar, with Colorado gunning down Amtrak, one of Hank's regulars. Paul, the bar's owner, tries to deflect attention by lying about the key and is also killed for it. And in all this madness, Hank locks himself inside the basement safe room of the bar, hoping to just survive through all the chaos. The safe room gives him time to think as Hank realizes that the key wasn't lost. He learns that on the night he was drinking, he put the key in the jacket he gave to a homeless man outside his apartment. So Hank finally retrieves the key. When Russ unexpectedly returns to town, Hank, now strung out and paranoid, takes it out on him and knocks him unconscious. Once Russ wakes, he reveals the truth to Hank, and we learn that the key opens a storage unit containing more than $4 million in cash, money Russ was supposed to divide among the mobsters before skipping town. So suddenly, Hank sees the entire bloody circus for what it is, and that is a race for money with him standing in the middle as bait. This brings us to the ending act of Aronofsky's new film, and following the reveal of the key's purpose, all the tension leads us to Shea Stadium, where Hank arranges an exchange. He offers Roman and the gangsters Russ and the key for Bud, but as expected, deals with gangsters never hold. Russ, cornered and panicked by Hank bringing him straight to the gangsters, grabs a gun and shoots Alexei. Hank, Bud and Russ flee the situation, but Russ is badly wounded. On a subway platform in the moments following this, Russ dies in front of Hank, leaving him with Bud and knowing about the cash. For a brief moment, it seems Hank might escape as he boards a bus to Coney Island with Bud cradled in his arms. Yet the past won't let him go. Roman resurfaces, threatening his mother's life unless he hands over the key. Hank reluctantly agrees, and this leads him into the lair of the Drucker brothers. They invite him to a Shabbat dinner with their mother, mixing ritual with menace before forcing him back into their van. But initially, Hank proves resourceful. He helps them kill Roman, and for doing so, he reveals the key's hiding place. We learn that for the second half of the film, it had been wrapped around Bud the entire time. So for a moment, the brothers show him some mercy, splitting the cash and supposedly allowing him to live. Yet we learn that Hank's grief cannot be brought off, and as he drives away with the brothers, he learns from them that they were the ones who killed Yvonne. Overcome with rage and in a parallel to the crash that still haunts him, Hank steers the car into a lamppost, killing the Druckers and avenging her death. He crawls away from the wreckage with Bud in hand, battered but alive. Come the end, he ultimately disguises himself as Russ, taking the stolen fortune and Bud away from New York. He also phones his mother to reassure her that he's finally okay, and travels to Tulum in Mexico. The last shots of the film show that he has now escaped his past, but done so at the cost of blood, love, and the remnants of the man he used to be. We learn that Caught Stealing also treats viewers to a couple of light-hearted mid-credit surprises. First, we see Hank's mother, who up until this point we've only heard through voice, revealed to be played by Laura Dern. She opens a package sent by Hank, which turns out to be packed with the cash. Later on in the credits, we also see Russ's cat Bud relaxing on a beach, signalling that Hank has escaped, assuming the neighbour's identity, and left his chaotic past behind. So as a whole, Aronofsky's film is about how one small, seemingly innocent choice can unravel a life, especially when made by someone already burdened with regret. Hank's decision to watch his neighbour's cat sets off a spiral of violence, betrayal and loss, but the film frames this not as random bad luck, but as a consequence of how unmoored he already is. Once a man of promise, Hank has been living in the shadow of failure. His baseball career was destroyed, his friendships gone, and his sense of purpose drowned in alcohol. The chaos that follows the cat-sitting favour becomes a metaphor for the fragility of his existence, as he's someone with no real anchor in the world. He can easily be swept into other people's battles, used as a pawn in conflicts they never asked for. By the end, Hank has killed, stolen and deceived, becoming almost indistinguishable from the criminals he once stumbled into. Yet paradoxically, his journey also makes him stronger. The man who began the story as a washed-up ex-athlete hiding in a bar ends as someone who can outthink cops, mobsters and assassins. The film asks us whether this transformation is a victory or a tragedy. Has Hank found a way to finally live, or has he simply lost the last remnants of his humanity? Something to also mention is that the film focuses on the theme of betrayal and the corrupting power of money. Every faction in the story, whether it's the Russians, the Drucker brothers, Detective Roman, or even Russ, wants the key not because of loyalty or principle, but because of greed. They all manipulate, torture, and murder in the pursuit of wealth. Hank at first is a victim of this greed, but by the conclusion he inherits it. With half the stolen fortune in his hands, he does not reject the cycle but escapes with it, reinventing himself in Mexico. The movie implies that survival in such a world is not about staying pure, but about learning to play the same dirty game. I think it costs Hank his innocence, his love, and perhaps his own soul. So in thinking about all of this, I think Caught Stealing is a bittersweet meditation on identity and reinvention. Baseball, once central to Hank's life, symbolises the dream of who he could have been, while New York represents the grime of who he became. By the end, he assumes another man's name, another man's money, and another man's escape. And the film closes not trying to signal an essence of triumph, but instead ambiguity. Is Hank truly free, or has he only delayed the cycle from finding him again? In this sense, the meaning of the movie is not about winning, but about enduring. It portrays life as an unfair game where survival often demands compromise, and where escape comes not just from justice but from sheer chance, cunning, and a willingness to let go of who you once were. But that was my breakdown and analysis for Caught Stealing. Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing is a brutal, pulpy descent into chaos that feels like a collision between a crime noir and urban survival tale with flashes of absurd dark humour. Directed with a gritty, lived-in energy, the film captures the sweaty, anarchic pulse of late 1990s New York City, where every back alley, dive bar and subway car hides predators waiting to pounce. At its centre is Hank, and Austin Butler's performance is both raw and physical, showing him as a man trapped by his past, not quite ready to fight, but forced into survival when the world violently refuses to leave him alone. And what makes it stand out isn't just a betrayal of escalating violence, but the way it refuses to let Hank remain a victim. Every time he's beaten, tricked, or left for dead, he adapts, growing a little sharper and harder, until by the end, he's navigating the criminal underworld with the same instincts as those who hunted him. Tonally, the film walked a razor's edge between grim realism and chaotic absurdity, but it's often staged with a sense of bizarre comedy that makes the violent moments surprisingly sharper. It feels like a style that recalls early Tarantino or the Coen brothers in their darker work, and it leans into the manic unpredictability of Hank's downward spiral. You never know who to trust because every character, from the Russian mobsters to Regina King's calculating detective, is operating out of greed and self-interest. This creates an atmosphere of constant betrayal where the only truly loyal presence in the movie is Bud the cat. Hank starts as a man running from his failures, defined by what he lost, but by the end he has remade himself entirely, taking on a new name, new money, and a new life in Mexico. The film never implies that this is redemption for him, because it's survival at a cost. As a piece of filmmaking, I think it's tense, messy, and unapologetically violent, but that's part of its charm too. The editing keeps the momentum sharp, the sound design places you deep in the chaos of New York, and the performances, especially Butler's desperate transformation and Regina King's steely presence, elevate it into something more resonant. In the end, I think Caught Stealing is about how quickly a normal life can collapse, how greed corrupts everything it touches, and how survival often means losing who you once were. For viewers who appreciate crime stories with grit, unpredictability, and a wounded but relentless anti-hero, I think you'll see it as a satisfying cinematic experience. But I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the film and the main details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on upcoming film releases like Caught Stealing, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, rating, and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.